International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, Algeria has taken note of Paris' decision to recall the French ambassador to Algeria for consultations and to ask 12 Algerian consular and diplomatic officials to leave the French territory. As the humanitarian situation is deteriorating in Sudan, the international community meeting in London has called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and pledged to mobilise more than 800 million additional euros. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has expressed concern over the continued blockade of the Israeli occupation of the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip as more massacres are being committed by the occupier. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. Algeria has taken note of Paris' decision to recall the French ambassador to Algeria for consultations and to ask 12 Algerian consular and diplomatic officials to leave the French territory. Asia Bikar has the details.
The Secretary of State to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in charge of the national community abroad, Mr. Soufiane Chaib, has declared that Algeria has taken note of the French decision. He said Algeria does not yet have all the precise details of the consular officers affected by this deplorable new decision. He recalled that Algeria clearly stated in its April 14th press release that the decision to expel officials from the French Interior Ministry is justified by the unprecedented nature of the crisis and the tension created by the French Minister of Interior, Bruno Retailleau, regarding the arrest in France of an Algerian consular official. At the same time, he reiterated the content of Algeria's last press release, which clearly stated that Algeria is able to take further measures based on the principle of reciprocity.
Cette mesure a été une mesure.
This was a sovereign and proportionate measure, proportionate insofar as it only targeted officers under the authority of the French Ministry of the Interior, and insofar as this new issue is the outcome of these actions and maneuvers in successive stages aimed at torpedoing the dynamic of warming bilateral relations, just 2 days after the French Foreign Minister's visit to Algeria, which was intended to give concrete expression to the joint commitment made at the level of the heads of state and the shared desire to renew the dialogue between the two countries.
He said the current crisis and tension are the direct result of this plot and dramatization of this issue created from scratch by the Interior Minister of France, who planned it by rehashing a case dating back more than 8 months.
On the public road, in full view of everyone, he is a consular officer who enjoys the immunities and privileges of his status, insofar as he is officially accredited to the French state, and this arrest is disgraceful and does not respect his agreements, immunities and privileges. We also denounce in the strongest possible terms the argument put forward at the hearing on which the decision to keep him in custody was based. In the frame of the press releases issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs following the development of this case, we have very clearly indicated our firm intention to defend this consular officer, and we have resorted to the legal advisors at both the embassy and the consulate concerned, which is located in the Paris region.
That was the statement of the Secretary of State to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in charge of the national community abroad, Mr. Soufiane Chaib.
The Secretary-General of the Ministry of National Defense, Major General Mohammed Salah bin Bishar, has received the Deputy Chairman of the Russian Defense and Security Committee and Chairman of the Algerian-Russian Parliamentary Friendship Group, Yuri Vaeva, accompanied by a high-level delegation. The two parties held bilateral discussions which focused on areas of common interest such as the Joint Commission in charge of military and technical cooperation. Now, the Secretary-General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and the African Affairs, Lunas Megraman, has co-chaired in Bratislava, Slovenia, the second session of the Algerian-Slovak political consultations with the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and European Affairs of the Slovak Republic, Marek Stok. During this session, the two parties discussed the state of bilateral relations and ways and means to strengthen cooperation within the framework of the materialization of the will that drives the leaders of the two countries. Prime Minister Nadir Arbawi has presided over the installation ceremony of Mohamed Bukhari as head of the National Economic, Social and Environmental Council, CNES, replacing Rabia Kharfi in implementation of the decision taken by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. In a speech given at the ceremony, Prime Minister Nadir Arbawi said that the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, had introduced a multidimensional strategic vision for development based on economic transformation, social justice and sustainable development. He added that this vision forms part of the comprehensive and ambitious reform program put forward by the President to implement major structuring projects and support investment and the wealth-generating economy. This vision, he emphasized, is based on developing national production, promoting exports and continuing the process of transition to an economy based on knowledge, innovation and digitization while preserving the social nature of the state. 8 agreements have been signed in Algiers between Algerian and Chinese companies for the implementation of industrial and agricultural investments. The details with Asya Bikar.
The agreements were signed during the Algerian-Chinese Business Forum on Investment held at the International Conference Center under the high patronage of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, by the Algerian Agency for Investment Promotion under the supervision of the Minister of Industry and the Ambassador of China. The Minister of Industry seized the opportunity to call on the Chinese operators to boost investment in Algeria. He also shed light on the importance of the signed agreements between Algeria and China. He added that the strategic partnership between the two countries has entered a new phase with a promising vision and prospects in accordance with what was agreed upon during the President's state visit to China in July 2023. For his part, the director of the Algerian Agency for Investment Promotion, Mr. Omar Rakash, indicated that the agency has identified since its creation in 2022 until last March a total of 42 Chinese investment projects worth $4.5 billion.
The international community meeting in London has called for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Sudan and pledged to mobilize more than 800 million additional euros for this war-torn country, which is in the throes of a catastrophic humanitarian crisis. Said Boughazi has the details.
Participants in the conference, co-organized by the UK, the African Union and the European Union, also stressed in a final communique the need to prevent any partition of Sudan torn apart by a fratricidal conflict. Many have abandoned Sudan. It is a moral error when so many civilians are beheaded. Infants as young as 1 year old are victims of sexual violence, and more people are threatened with starvation than anywhere else in the world, said David Lammy, the head of the British Diplomatic Service. He denounced the lack of political will to put an end to the conflict and the suffering of the population and called on us not to look elsewhere. The war that broke out on 15 April 2023 has left tens of thousands dead and more than 13 million displaced and refugees, plunging the country of 50 million into a major humanitarian crisis, according to the United Nations. At the conference, which brought together some 15 countries and representatives of the United Nations and the Arab League, the participants pledged a total of more than 800 million euros in new funding for humanitarian aid.
Now to the Middle East. The Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, Filippo Lazzarini, has welcomed the European Commission's announcement to continue funding the agency, emphasizing that this decision recognizes the vital role of UNRWA in humanitarian and development fields in the region. Masoud Sharfi.
Mr. Lazzarini expressed gratitude for the EU's long-term support, particularly the proposed 82 million euros annually for Palestinian refugees. The EU also proposed 1 billion euros in aid to the Palestinian state for 2025-2027, reaffirming its commitment to a two-state solution. This funding will enable UNRWA to maintain its vital humanitarian and development role in the region. Separately, according to the World Health Organization, WHO, Al-Ahli Hospital in Gaza has been rendered out of service after being bombed by Israeli occupation forces. The attack destroyed key facilities, forcing the transfer of patients through some critically ill individual remains. Hospital repairs could take weeks or months due to a lack of spare parts under blockade. Only 21 of Gaza's 36 hospitals remain partially functional. WHO Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus stressed that hospitals must be protected under international law and urged the lifting of the aid blockade. Doctors Without Borders (MSF) warned that Gaza has become a mass grave due to continuous Israeli attacks and a blockade on humanitarian aid. MSF called for an immediate end to the blockade, protection of civilians and aid workers, and the restoration of a ceasefire.
The ongoing Zionist aggression on the city of Tulkarem and its camp has entered its 80th day and the 67th day in the Nur Shams camp amid ongoing escalation on the ground, raids and arrests. At dawn today, Tulkarem city, its camps and its suburbs witnessed a heavy deployment of occupation vehicles and infantry units, accompanied by raids and searches in several neighborhoods amid heavy gunfire and sound bombs. More details with Said Bougazi.
Late last night, Zionist occupation forces raided the El Qaisi and El Huda gas station in the Es-Salam neighborhood east of the city and detained a number of young men present there. They searched them, checked their IDs and abused them. The military deployment extended to the Dinaba suburb and the road connecting it to the town of Kafar Labad to the east. Occupation forces patrolled several neighborhoods within the city. Vehicles were blocked and prevented from passing on many occasions. The ongoing Israeli aggression and escalation on the city of Tulkarem and its two camps have resulted in the deaths of 13 citizens, including a child and 2 women, one of whom was 8 months pregnant. Dozens have also been injured and arrested. It has also resulted in the forced displacement of more than 4,000 families from the Tulkarem and Nur Shams camps, along with hundreds of citizens from the northern neighborhood of the city after their homes were seized and a number of them converted into military barracks. 396 homes have been completely destroyed and 2,573 partially destroyed in the Tulkarem and Nur Shams refugee camps.
The Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, has expressed his concern over the continued blockade by the Zionist occupier of the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, stressing that the population must have access to the basic necessities to survive. Guterres said in a message posted on social media that nearly 70% of the Gaza Strip is now subject to evacuation orders issued by the Israeli occupation or is located in a prohibited zone. The Lebanese National News Agency has reported that a Lebanese man was killed and another was injured following a drone strike by the Israeli army and that targeted a vehicle in Wadi al-Hujayr, southern Lebanon. Mr. Sharfi.
According to the agency, on Tuesday evening, Israeli fighter jets struck the Civil Defense Center in Tyre Harfa and 2 houses. Another Lebanese man died from injuries sustained in a separate airstrikes on Aitaroun. Earlier, the UN Human Rights Office OHCHR spokesperson Thamin Al-Khitan stated that the aggression carried out by Israeli forces against Lebanon has resulted in at least 71 civilian deaths since the ceasefire began in November 2024. At a press briefing in Geneva, Al-Khitan expressed concern over civilian casualties and infrastructure damage. He added that 92,000 people remain displaced and living in fear months after the ceasefire was expected to end the fighting. The ceasefire between Lebanon and the Israeli occupation came in effect on November 27, marking an end to months of aggression. It includes provisions for the development of the Lebanese army along the southern border, with the support of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL. Although the Israeli occupation was initially expected to fully withdraw from southern Lebanon by January 26th, later extended to February 26th, it still maintains control over 5 positions in the area.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. The Algerian people commemorate on April 16 of each year the Day of Science and Knowledge, Yom al-Ilm, in tribute to the founder of the Association of Algerian Muslim Ulama Scholars, the Sheikh Abdelhamid bin Badiz, who contributed to the defense of the dignity of the Algerian identity. Let's know more in the following broadcast.